So welcome everybody. This is our fourth speaker of our Spring 2020 speaker series, How to Tailor Bluebeam to Diverse Projects. And tonight we have a special guest. It's one of our first female speakers for our user group. So we're very excited to hear from it's Mayra Melgoza, right? Hi, Mayra. Yeah, so we're very glad to have you here tonight. So, and Carrie Rentz from Queering is also here. So we want to welcome both of them here tonight. I just want to introduce myself. Mayra, you don't know me yet, but you will. Once you kind of get roped into this, we may be having you come more often. So it'll be nice to definitely connect with you. So my name's Christy, and I'm the advisor for the Bug User Group. And I also advise our ABC team, which is our building construction team. And I teach most of the core classes in the CM program. So my background's in project controls and estimating and scheduling, and then claims management. So I got roped into doing the Bug User Group years ago, and I reached out to Carrie, and so we've been doing this now, I think, for probably 5 years, it seems. So it's been quite a while, and Carrie has been one of our initial partners, our industry partners, and so we're really grateful to have you guys partner with us in this endeavor.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so welcome you guys. And I just wanted to mention too that we may have a couple people come in from BYU Idaho. I did hear from BYU Idaho late in the day, and they said that I guess it's their last day of their quarter. They're on the quarter system. So we may get a few, we may not, we'll just see. But if we do, I'll try and make sure they get introduced to maybe towards the end of our discussion. Okay. So let's do this. Let's go around and just the bug leaders, maybe just say your name and what year you are, just so that Carrie and Mayra know who you are. I know Carrie's met most of you, but why don't you go ahead? So Kiet, why don't you go first?
Yeah, hello, my name is Keith, and I'm a second-year transfer student. I am in the marketing department for the Bug Group, and I make those slides.
And he does a really nice job. So he made the slide for our marketing for your speaking role here, Mayra. So Daniel, why don't you go next?
Hi everybody, my name is Daniel. I just started my senior year, my first semester in the Bug Group.
And we're really glad to have him. So good to have you here too tonight, Daniel. Matt, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, hey, I'm Matt. I'm a sophomore.
Hi, that was short and sweet. Matt's one of our younger group members, which we're really glad to have him because we roped him into this early. So it's good to have Matt here. So Ray, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
So sorry, I'm eating.
Oh, sorry, Ray.
I'm Ray. I'm a third year here at Fresno State. I am co-administration. I'm the mentee following Liza, so hopefully I can do a good job.
Yeah, so welcome and good to have you here, Ray. Liza is usually here, but she might have a little senioritis. We'll just see if she is able to show up here tonight. Jaime, why don't you go in and introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm just walking back to my apartment right now, but I'm a senior. Hopefully graduate at the end of the year, and yeah, glad to be here.
Good to have you here, Jaime. I'm sure you'll get settled here in a minute. So just to let you guys know that are Carrie and Mayra, we're kind of, I want to say, after a lot of the classes. And so it's kind of the break before, the evening ends here. So we might have a few students that are straggling in here late. It just happens that way sometimes because they've had a busy day. Before we get started introducing Mayra, why don't you guys also, I want to make an announcement. If you are here for a certain class, make sure you put your name in the chat as well as your class, the course number that you're here for. Also, I would like to request that if you're here and you want, if you're here for a specific class, you should be turning on your web cameras, okay? Unless you're like eating, and Ray will turn his on after he's done, so.
Wow, Christy, wow.
I'm just teasing you.
I will say that when Ray was my intern, he definitely, enjoyed lunch.
Ate a lot.
Hey, Carrie.
Hey, we finally finished your job, by the way, Ray, out there. So
I know, I heard. I took who did I talk to? I talked to Mike. Mike, he told me.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
So
Yes.
you might get a phone call from the owner saying, what did you break? We blamed a lot on you at the end.
So yeah, so those of you that are
your intern.
Oh, you didn't, Mayra?
Yeah, I think I did meet Ray out there at Animal Shelter once.
Oh,
yeah, I think you did before you started the well. Yeah, you toured. That's right.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Okay, so yeah, so those of you that are on mute, you don't have your video showing, please turn that on when you're settled and ready to do so. We'd really appreciate it. We'd like to meet you and have your presence here. Okay, so I'm going to turn this over to Mayra. So welcome, Mayra. So maybe what you could do first is just share a little bit about yourself and what your role is at Queering or roles. I hear that you're in a kind of like in a transition, which is really exciting. And I think the students will really be interested in seeing and hearing how you're moving from estimating, or you've moved from estimating to the field. And so we might get some questions about that, and maybe just share some of the roles and responsibilities that you're doing there out in your new position.
I'm gonna share my screen and then kind of go into that conversation.
Okay, great.
Okay, so the project that I'm currently on as project engineer is the Well Community Church. When I first came on to Queering, which was probably 2.5, almost 3 years ago, I got hired on as an estimator, and this was actually one of my first projects in pre-construction. So I don't know how many of you guys know what all goes on in pre-construction and how early and sometimes how long it can take. But essentially, I've been on this job before it broke ground 1.5 years to 2 years. So since this was one of my first projects with Querying at conceptual stage. So with pre-construction, before any construction drawings get done, you have a schematic conceptual drawing, which consists of usually just one sheet. An architect has an idea, they draw it up on one sheet, they give it to the general contractor to put a full budget together and the cost associated. Then as the drawings develop, you have a DD set, which is design development, what we call 50% drawings. And you usually have a few architectural drawings included in there, some civil, some landscape. And usually at that point, the landscape architect draws the renderings. And at that point, you give another cost estimate to the owner of how the project is heading with these drawings being developed, like whether the initial budget was good, whether you're over or under in certain areas, before it goes to the full set of drawings, which are the CD sets. And those are the ones that you send out to subcontractors and you bid it out. And then once all that is done, you get all the bids in, you level it, you make sure every subcontractor has their scopes covered. Then you go out and build it, or you hand it off to the project team that goes off and builds it. I I'm in that transition role where I saw this from SD all the way to CD, and now I'm out in the field and I'm the project engineer out there as well. So I have immense background knowledge from the initial conceptual set through the design and then seeing it come to life out in the field.
Mayra, can I ask you a question? I'm going to ask you lots of questions.
Yeah,
So-
go ahead.
So we have a few people here, a few of the students here that are in our CM20 class, which is really our construction documents class. And we teach about the project life cycle, and they go through, schematic and conceptual, and then, or the schematic design development, and then the construction document or drawings. Did you guys, one of the things that we try and focus on in that CM20 class is, did you guys have a set like project delivery method that you were using? I don't know if you've heard of that term or not, but was this like a design build job, or was it a bid job negotiated? How did that work for querying?
Well, with querying, every project is different. With this project and specifically, it was a design build. So after schematic design, we sent out to get your MEPs bid out, and then you get your design build contractor at that stage. And during design development, the MEPs are coordinating with the architect and getting those drawings pushed through all the way to CD. And then at CD, you mainly bid out everything except mechanical, electrical, and plumbing, fire, for design build.
Well, interesting. And did you guys suggest that to the client, or did the client know?
It was suggested, but the client also did a basis of design so that the MEP contractors could all bid off of the same. So it's a little bit of both, where you kind of work together with the client and they have a consultant on their end to give direction to whoever we hired on as the MEPF design build contractors.
Okay, great. Yeah, I assume that was probably the case. And I'm asking these questions just so that the CM20 students, we actually just went over some of the stuff. So it's like, oh, it actually does work out. And, we are teaching the same thing that's happening out in the field. So I appreciate you kind of walking us through that a little bit.
Yeah, there's different, sorry, chime in
That's
just for a
okay.
second. There's, I want Mayra to do all the talking, unless
Yes.
you're ready. But I was gonna say there's different levels of that design build. So a lot of times, like Mayra said, they'll have an architect on board and a construction manager, and it's the construction manager's job to find a general contractor that can bring aboard and help facilitate those extra design elements. Whereas, I'm doing one right now in pre-con where we sort of got what we call bridging drawings that were basically an almost complete set. And then the design methodology for that one was we, as the contractor, actually brought on another architect to take those design drawings to the next step, as well as all the MEPs as well. So we have the full umbrella of design of architectural, structural, acoustic, civil, and mechanical, electrical, plumbing, fire, everything, based off the drawings that they already gave us. And so we took it the next step to get it through construction. So there's different like levels of the design build method, but a pretty common one is to actually have an architectural structural already done with some kind of background drawings, and then the MEP start coordinating directly with them. So yeah.
And Carrie, when you are working with the structural, mechanical, architectural, I'm assuming that those are consultants that are a part of your team. They may be working for a different company, or are they working for you?
It's they're usually different companies. We don't have any in-house design. It's all, we partner with architects, and a lot of times they already have a structural engineer or something like that already on board on their side, or they partner with somebody else. So it just really depends. It's not everything's always the same, you know. So
It has its own special little things about it. They're all different.
yeah, there's not one little peg that, or hole that they all fall into exactly the same way. So it's always changing too, which is fun.
Well, thanks, guys.
And that's, just to give you a brief overview of the project and what it encompasses. This is a 20-acre, we're developing 20 acres of this 50-acre lot. It's off of Clovis and Nice, so you guys are local, you guys kind of can drive by if some of you guys live in that area. It's 2 metal buildings, the sanctuary and the classrooms, and the site is pretty large and will feature a play field, a monument tower, some volleyball courts, a playground area for the little ones, some shade structures, a fireplace, and fire pits. So this is just a brief overview of the project scope. And the overlay that you're seeing on the PowerPoint was actually created in Bluebeam. So that's probably one of my favorite tools to do in Bluebeam is overlay features. And it kind of helps the client see their project over what's currently existing out there.
In Mayra, just generally, how did you do that? Did you take a Google Maps sheet and then overlay on top of that?
Yeah, so what I did was I go on Google Earth and you just get a general area of where your project's going to sit. You take a picture of that Google Earth and then you insert the picture in Bluebeam, and then you overlay your plan on top. So at the end, I was hoping to do a quick little demonstration of the overlay feature, not with a photo, but overlaying 2 plans on top of each other. So the students who don't know how to use that feature yet can kind of learn something new today.
Oh, that would be great, Mayra.
Yeah, that would have helped last year when I took CM 116.
So schematic design, I have a quick little slide here. So this is an example of what we get at schematic conceptual stage. So this is the original plan of project. It was in a different site, it was a different location on site, and you're just given this rough architectural drawing with a site plan. One of the features that I really like on Bluebeam is the count measurements because it helps doing these takeoffs when you're assuming where certain things are going. Because at schematic conceptual stage, they usually don't have a civil engineer on board yet. So the underground utilities aren't factored in yet. So all these lines, these colorful lines that you see here, are my assumptions of how the utilities will run and where fire hydrants would go. So using some of this to do the takeoff and develop the estimate during schematic design. And we get to design development drawings. You have, I kind of cluttered down at the bottom of how many sheets are included. And you only have roughly 18 sheets to work off of and develop your estimates off of that. You have to assume a lot and have coordination meetings with the architects to make sure that your assumptions and what you're putting into the estimate is accurate to we have the full set of construction drawings, which is 270 pages, and this would be the sets that you actually go out to bid and get subcontractors to provide you numbers, and the set that will go in for permitting, and that the project team will bid out. Well, I've included some takeoff examples here, both on the site and how I use Bluebeam to develop estimates, doing quick linear footage takeoff of pipe, and then plopping it into our estimating software where you input the quantities and then you associate a unit cost to that. And then same thing with the walls, you can do the interior exterior framing, so you can associate them with different heights. And then you plug your takeoff into the estimating software and get the information that way. As a project engineer, now that I'm out in the field, one of the biggest things I use Bluebeam for is coordination. And this includes drawing overlays. So when you're coordinating out in the field, you have multiple trades working in one area and you want to ensure that there are no conflicts before you actually go and build that portion of work. So in this example, I have the civil site utility plan. And then on top of that, I have the building HVAC, building fire sprinkler, and the PG&E drawings. You can see in this mechanical yard kind of where everything is landing. And this allowed us to see that there was a conflict down here where our fire riser was right in the middle of an HVAC duct. And it was nice getting this coordinated at the beginning before anything was out and crews were on site, because it saves time on the schedule. And these are things that can sometimes get missed during the design coordination and pre-con. But if you have these tools and you have the construction set, doing these quick overlays helps immensely in the field to prevent any schedule delays or any frustrated subcontractors who are trying to build their job, their work, and they have conflicts with another subcontractor. So one of the other things I do a lot with as a project engineer is I assist the superintendent with control and layout, and using Bluebeam to take layout measurements and go out in the field and verify some of those distances.
So Myra, I have a question in regards to like the coordination of your underground utilities and such, and maybe Carrie, you can pop in too. So how, like on this job, how close was what was planned or what you thought was there? Was it there? Did you guys go out and do a USA request and find differing conditions, or was it pretty true?
Sorry.
That's okay.
So one of the things about this job is that it was an old farmland, so there weren't many existing utilities, and all the existing utilities that we found were minimal irrigation pipes. But we did do USA along the borders and the frontage of the roads on where our utilities would tie into the city.
Yeah, that's pretty common. You know, most of these new construction sites, you know, when we USA, you'll just get the outside and it might have a couple tick lines. If there's any markers, that'll tell you where it's going on the site, but they kind of don't go too far on. A lot of times if we end up knowing that it's going in, we end up having our trades do potholing, and they'll do it every so often to figure out how far a line will go. But there's always something that's buried everywhere. I'm sure Mayra found plenty of surprises on this site. You know, so I mean, I found, you know, VW bugs buried in the dirt in some places. So
no way.
Yeah. So, I mean, so it's, you know, you never know what you're gonna find. But utility, I mean, there's kind of like two things. Like usually a lot of times, like your civil engineer will pull up the historical records and find all the existing lines that are going through there, and then he'll have it on his plans, kind of detailed. The ones that are usually very good will take it a step further, and they'll actually go out and do a site survey, and they'll actually get a USA, and they'll get things done, and they'll actually get it marked up correctly on their plans. But usually, you know, when we get it to the buildings and stuff, that's from the street on is on us. And we will find that, you know, sometimes the, you know, depths and things aren't like that are not exactly correct, and we have to readjust in the field. You know, sewer is definitely a big one. You know, if those as-builts on sewer lines aren't correct, then we have to, you know, everything's got to roll downhill to that sewer, you know, that lateral in the street. So you can't go uphill with it, unfortunately. So Usually you kind of start from your lowest point and work your way back as best you can through your slopes. So yeah, it's hit or miss. Usually pretty good.
Then I've included some project progress photos since we're out there building it. I've roughly showed you all the drawings in the previous slides. Here is us pouring the slab for the large sanctuary of us erecting the first amount of steel, more steel erection, some external framing going on, and our storm drain being installed. So you can kind of see storm drain inlet here and over here.
So Myra, oh wait, go back, Myra. I have questions about your pictures and other people may jump in and ask questions. So this first one on the upper left, I see at my upper left. So it looks like you're pouring early in the morning. So I'm baiting you because I know the answer, but why are you pouring so early in the morning?
For two reasons. One is for temperature control, and the other one is for how long it actually takes to pour that amount of concrete and actually finish it throughout the day. This subcontractor actually had two different crews. They had their morning pour crew, and then they had the finishers and the saw cut machines come in after the fact. They were here from 3 a.m. till 3 p.m.
Wow, 3 a.m. really? I was expecting maybe this might be like 5 or wow, like 5 or 6 or something in the morning.
Concrete guys don't believe in sleep. They really don't.
You know what though? That's one of the most, I would say that and like your steel going up, these other pictures are some of the most interesting to watch anyway. So it's fun for sure to be able to see that going on.
Yeah.
So how many crews did you say you had throughout that day?
We had two separate concrete crews, the morning concrete pour crew and then the finishing crew in the afternoon.
Okay.
First crew left like around 10 a.m. and then the other crew came in around lunchtime.
Okay. And I'm curious about the second picture here with the steel. So on this job, it looks like, so it wasn't, it's just, it looks like it's just a single story. There's no 2 stories on the job at all.
Both buildings are single stories.
I see. And so they used, and I don't know, are these, I don't know the exact name for these. Are they gradalls? Gradall?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. So that's why they're using the gradall for the steel rather than a crane come in and do it.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of a means and methods, you know. Mayra, who erected your steel out there for the canopy?
West Shaw erectors.
Okay. Yeah. So a lot of times, you know, they put those pieces together, you know, on the ground, and then they lift up on each end, and they'll have a crew on each side and bolt them straight to their steel columns.
I see.
Yeah. So it's sometimes it's a little bit easier to have 2 guys lifting it on each end to get the right heights that they need than it is trying to have a crane pick it up in the middle.
Okay.
And a bit. So that's how we've done it in the past. But your spans look pretty sizable. So I don't know. But yeah.
How long did it take, Mayra, for it to be erected?
Just the superstructure, which is what we consider over here where you see the external framing, just all the red iron. That was 15 days before we could get framing on site. But that doesn't mean that the structural steel guys are complete. They have to come in and do their metal siding, because the structural steel guys include the metal sidings that go over the external framing. And then the metal siding has to be installed before they can finish the roof. So they kind of have a couple of mobilizations coming in and out on this job site. But for their first, what we consider the superstructure phase, it was 15 days.
And Carrie, I don't know if you understood what she said, but I'm trying to hear, how long did it take to erect the
It's not like 15 days for the
Okay.
erection. And
Okay.
then they have to build their exterior metal stud walls. And then the same crew that was doing the erection also had the metal siding paneling that goes on
Okay.
the outside. And then they do that, and then they come and do the roof.
I see. Okay. We're just having a little trouble hearing you, Mayra. So it's you just keep speaking up a little bit. So yeah, so that looks like the right corner there, the upper right corner is what you guys were talking about there.
Yeah.
And let me look down here on the left. I've got things in the way. So maybe you could tell them about this left picture a little bit more. Left bottom.
Left where it's just the, yeah, so that is actually the superstructure starting up for the second building. So once the crew was finished with the superstructure on what we call building A, the sanctuary, that same crew went over to the second building and started erecting steel on that building. And then the framers will follow them. Kind
Okay.
of like a hopscotch in sequence. So the steel guys in A, then they go to B, and then the framers follow them each.
And it looks like this lower middle picture, you guys are finishing up the roof on the sanctuary?
It's the entrance where a large canopy will eventually hang off of. But they're starting to get the roof purlins kind of finalized in that area.
Okay.
And it also kind of shows the storm drain being completed where you see that orange cone at the bottom in the middle of that.
I
area.
see. And then the
We're
one,
trying to do that so that as the equipment's running through between both buildings, they don't damage what is a permanent feature in the storm drain inlets. We want to make sure that everyone's aware of they're there. Please don't run them over.
right. And where did you get your steel from?
We got it from a metal building supplier called Metallic.
And is it locally?
I don't believe so. I think they're out in Texas. They're a large national company.
Okay,
But the erector is local.
I see. So I'm just curious, did obviously this was designed, right? And then they're sending, you said it's a metal building. Are they like sending it all out?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a pre-engineered metal building.
Okay, okay. I guess I didn't hear that before. That's really interesting. And so they send it out in pieces. Okay, interesting. And then tell us what this lower right corner is again.
That is a small catch basin of our storm drain being installed on site.
Okay. So do any of you have any questions about these pictures that you want to ask her in particular? You guys are good? Okay.
I had one question. Sorry.
That's okay.
Did you guys cover the concrete, Mayra?
What do you mean?
Like, did you guys
What
protect the
covers the
concrete with
concrete?
anything? Or is like,
No. All the concrete's getting, like, are you talking about with the equipment on it?
yeah,
Now the concrete is getting covered with carpeting and tile. So there's no exposed concrete areas.
So if it cracks, it cracks.
Yeah, I think what Ray was thinking is because we had a somewhat of a similar structure that when he was interning with us, and we had a large open sally port areas that was all exposed concrete, and we ended up laying masonite down. So that way when the equipment drove on it, it wasn't damaging it, so it wouldn't transfer over into the finished product as much. So it
Yeah.
worked okay. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
She's lucky. She gets to cover hers.
Yes.
Yeah.
You peel it up, you'll just see nothing
Luckily,
but
none
tire
of our
marks
concrete
everywhere,
is
right?
finished.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So,
no, none of the concrete is finished product.
Is the structure bolted or is it welded on the top? Or-
It's mainly bolted, but there were some field modifications that had to happen due to certain conditions on site. We opted to weld those on site instead of doing a bolted connection, which could result in not being in the correct spot down the road when it was being erected. So it's kind of a combination of both. I would say 90% bolted, 10% welded. Any other questions?
You know, I'm thinking as I'm, so you said it's a pre-engineered metal building and it's got a sanctuary there. That's, I mean, it's in Clovis. So for heat purposes, they're going to have $1.5 billion. Are you going to put solar on the top?
No, not on the top of the structure due to the roof load, but there is going to be solar shade structures out in the parking lot.
Interesting. Okay. Because it'll be a little toasty in the summertime if they don't have good air conditioning in there.
Yes.
You know, I'm just curious, maybe I don't know if you guys think about this, but and you might know too, Carrie, is that is your construction like being, you know, the design of some of your new projects taking into account the high energy costs and everything, and working that in so that, you know, there's solar and other things that you're using to kind of mitigate some of those costs, because it's terrible in Fresno.
So I don't know, I'll jump in on this one, Mayra. Solar is usually something that every new building has to show some type of future expansion to solar. And by what I mean by that is we don't actually have to put a pathway in or anything like that. We just have to give a designated pathway showing the plans of if they do add solar to the roof, this would be the pathway to go to the electrical rooms and stuff like that. And from there up to the roof. It's all about the tax credit. I mean, a lot of owners don't immediately put it in because when you start talking about adding solar to a roof structure, say take this for example, is you're increasing the load of the amount of panels and things that has to go in there, which means now you have to buy a bigger steel or stronger purlin or whatever your gauge metal changes. You're adding more cost, so you end up trying to add another, let's say $200,000 to the construction cost, not on top of the actual cost of the system itself, right? With the hope that they're going to get some kind of commercial tax credit or something. A lot of times it's not something that people, as I say, owners jump on right away. We are starting to see more and more of it, but it's, they know what it's gonna. They have to do a study and tell PG&E and like the city and everything like that on what they expect the intended impact will be to the infrastructure of the surrounding areas. So like the plumber has to do a calculation on how much waste and how much water they think they're going to need, and the electrician has to say how much draw they think the system is going to need for permanent power, and based on that, the owner can get an idea of what a monthly cost will be with the cooling systems. But it's with Title 24 and, building green, compliances that are coming around. That's making things a little bit better, but it's also driving more cost and components, so what you might save on a PG&E bill, you're buying a switch that costs you, or a circuit breaker that costs you an extra couple $100 just to get the light sensors that you need and stuff like that. So it's playing a role, let's put it that way. Whether it's really fully understood, but all you're doing, we had a talk about this with the city actually today, and you might be, a light switch might have an on and off switch, right? You have a light to a light switch, right? Now you have to add motion sensors. So it's no longer is it a light switch, it's also a motion sensor, right? Or an occupancy sensor. So you just added another component that can fail, that'll mess up your light working on other things. So you're now adding an extra piece and an extra cost and an extra wiring system to it, and then a lot of that has to go back to a lighting control that says after so much time, the time clock will shut down the lighting to the whole site at a certain, thing to try and save power and save energy. Well, if that doesn't work, then it still stays on. And if that burns out, then you have to buy another component to that. So there are things that are helping, but, they also make an impact on the cost of the job too. So there's a lot of rules we follow, but yeah, solar is one that we're seeing more of. I know definitely in residential homes, I think it's code now that they have to put solar on. And they have to do some of that, but it hasn't quite made its way to commercial because it's a pretty huge cost. Like when you think about how many panels that this facility would need, now you're building, you probably can't do it all on the roof because Mayra, correct me if I'm wrong, you have AC units up on that roof that take up a good amount of space, right? No, not on that one. Oh yeah, are they all on the ground?
There's nothing on the roof on the structure.
Okay.
Because it's a pre-engineered metal building. We have various mechanical yards on the ground.
Okay. Okay. So some owners don't like that, so mine on the other side is the opposite. Ours was re-engineered with the structural to actually boost the strength, and we added some steel so the units can be on the top and fed down instead of building a whole yard where it pipes into the whole facility. So so this is probably a case where a solar actually makes sense on the structure, but for say the job I just did where you have those units, it really isn't laid out that way. And now you're having to build carports, and add that on there too. So now you're building these structures that, go over that you see at, Fresno State, for example, they're all over the place, right? So, that's a lot of cost to a private, commercial entity, so.
So is that why like Fresno State or even Bullard High School, they did the carports instead of putting it on the roof because the load couldn't take the solar?
They would have to probably do a lot of infrastructure, and even then they probably have flat roofs with units up top. So they probably would have to build platforms that go above that, so it just, in those situations where you have large parking lots, which this one would probably be a candidate to, is it makes sense to get a lot of panels out there because you're providing two services. You're shading your parking stalls and you're getting the solar that you want from it.
And do you guys foresee that legislation and just governor and whatever changing commercial to all solar, just whether it costs or not?
I see it probably not anytime super soon.
Okay.
I see Jacob shaking his head actually. He's like, no way, man. I see California pushing it. Let's put it that way. So California is trying to go more all electric everything and push more solar anyways. So I could see them going for it, but everything takes time, and if there's not much of an incentive, there's enough people lobbying probably to
I know
try to keep that out, but
well,
if Elon Musk is gonna buy Twitter and then start his own social media platform, he owns Solar City, so somebody's so.
This is a very side note. We'll get back on track again, but I saw in the paper here, and those of you that don't know, I'm back here in Cody, Wyoming. My husband is from here, and there's like 10,000 people in this town. They put out a poll that said, how many of you would be interested in electric cars and being, having these electric stations built in Wyoming for it was like 70% said like, no way. And the other 20% were like, yeah, way, And I was thinking, oh my gosh, this is a huge stake. Can you imagine the amount of money that they would have, to be able to do that? But that gets into kind of like down the political road. But, this is something that, right now is a big thing politically and everything, that you just wonder, when is it going to switch? And they're just not going to think straight, because these people don't understand, the politicians don't understand how much things cost, or what goes into like this particular project and having these loads and everything. They just make decisions without understanding them fully, I think.
I bet that 30% that said yes were the ones that moved out of California during COVID.
This
Because
is
now it's cheaper. They can work remote.
Well, we're really getting off topic, but this is so bad. It's like bad jokes here, but they have a billboard coming into Cody that says "Don't
Maybe
California."
we pause the recording here, right?
They have a billboard coming into Cody that says "Don't California our Cody." So it's like, so anyway. So anyway, Mayra, so this has been great. I mean, it's been great to kind of go off topic and learn about some of these things, because they're big things that are out there in the industry. So we'll refocus us back here to your project.
It's kind of perfect timing, because this kind of goes towards the tail end of the project, and where I kind of just add some links. These two links are probably my go-to. Like, this one I actually used the other day. One of the architects sent me something on PDF, and I kept getting these weird blue screens coming up, and I wasn't able to get my measurements right when trying to do takeoff. And all I did was go in here and put page turns blue and take measurements. It gave me a complete solution. I just implemented it and then went on with my day. It was helpful. But just using the resources that are out there and kind of being curious of all the things that Bluebeam can actually do. There's so many videos that Bluebeam themselves have, and you just gotta have the curiosity to want to like dive into what the capabilities are. And right now I'm gonna stop the share because I'm gonna switch over to go to my Bluebeam. And I'm show you.
Hey, Mayra. I was going to stop you before you. What was, we know about the videos on Bluebeam. But what was the Bluebeam Assist? Was it just questions that you type in? Yeah, Bluebeam Assist online.
You click on there. It's like a technical support, so you kind of just search what your problem is, and
okay,
articles relating to your problem, and they literally like the problem is here, and then cause, and then the solution. Super straightforward. Like, you can type in any problem on this technical support assist thing, and they'll usually have a solution for you. And if not, I just type it into Google, and usually the first link comes up as the Bluebeam support.
And I think that that's just on www.bluebeam.com, right? So I'm going to put that in if you go to the Bluebeam website, you can actually find all of these, like there's training videos. So those of you that are in CM20 now that are learning about Bluebeam, you can actually go to the Bluebeam website, and there's training videos, there's webinars, there's all sorts of things. And it looks like, from what Mayra is saying, there's a Bluebeam Assist where you can actually type in your question like she did, why it turns, why those page in review turns blue, and she was able to find the answer. I'm assuming that's how you got there. Okay.
Yeah, it's just support.bluebeam.com.
Oh, so it's not, so it's support.
No, it's their technical support. Yeah.
Bluebeam.com, like that there. support bluebeam.com. Yeah, so those of you that are starting out, I know Tomas and some of you that are in CM20, that could be very helpful here for you. While Mayra is pulling up her screen, I noticed that there were a lot. Mayra, we have a graduate program now for a Master of Science in Construction Management. And we have a whole class that really likes to come to these, but it's at the same time as the Bluebeam meeting. And I think they got out early and I saw a lot of them pop in. So we like doubled our attendance here. So that's why you see a few people coming in. They all came from the graduate class. So it's so nice to see all of you guys.
Yes, our lecture left, Vivian left us early. So yeah.
I know, I saw you come in and I thought, oh, she must have left you out early. So it's good to see all of you.
Yes, thank you.
What class do you have, Nanad?
It's CM 240, Advanced Construction Business Strategy.
Okay. Okay, so it is showing here now, Mayra.
I want to go through like just what I do out in the field, quick overlays, kind of help coordinate any of the drawings or see any conflicts down the road. So probably my favorite feature is this guy right here. It is it's called. So essentially what it does is takes a picture. First, let me explain what you guys are looking at before I get too far into it. So this is a sanctuary. This is the building that you guys saw the external framing going up. So to kind of give you an orientation, the external framing in the previous picture was along this wall. This is the large gathering area. This structure has 3 mechanical yards. This large yard here that mainly services the large sanctuary. And this small back area. The small yard, which services this front lobby section with the bathrooms. And then this other small yard on the northwest corner that services these nursery classrooms. This is the architectural plan. So it just has all the general notes with some of the rough calls out and mechanical services. I have on this drawing is the actual HVAC duct. So all the supply intakes coming into the building. What I would do here to do any coordination and do the overlay is I would come up here to the snapshot, or you can hit G on your keyboard on the HVAC plan, and I would just turn it off to whatever area I wanted to capture. I like getting the grid lines in there as well because it helps when you match up and overlay it on the other drawings. Ensure that your grid lines are matching up properly. So you see that kind of turned blue, that means it captures that picture. Go off to the architectural set and you just paste it. And you come in here and you line it up. Since scale, line up is fairly easy to do. What I like to do once I did that snapshot on top of the other one, I come out here to the blend mode feature under the properties and settings. And there's all these different options that you can do. Once you put an image on top of another PDF, I just do the multiply, and it kind of just cleans up and makes the mechanical drawings a little bold. So you can quickly see the difference between the normal, fades out some of the things versus it makes certain things more. Here you can see where the large duct is coming. It's going to be over the sanctuary. And the other things you can do is see how it lines up electrical lighting, your ACT tiles where your ducts coming in. This is just one of quick, easy overlay features that is probably one of the most used out on the field on my side for any coordination items, along with the measurement takeoffs that I usually keep on this side. And then if I want to draw on it and ensure that the image doesn't like accidentally move like that, I just flatten the picture. Now I have a PDF of the architectural plan and the HVAC plan on top of it, and I can mark it up without any concerns of it moving or going offset. Anyone have any questions or anything they'd like to see?
Mayra, I have a question. That's awesome. I didn't know about the bolding, but this really works well if your mechanical and your architectural in this example are like set at the same scale, everything too, right? So if they're different scales, it wouldn't probably line up correctly. Is that correct?
Correct. It wouldn't line up correctly, but the good thing about having it be an image instead of a straight document overlay, like if you have an 8.5 on top of an 8.5 and you're just doing the document overlay, is that with the image, you have this scale feature under snapshot properties, where you're also messing with like the blend mode. And you can adjust the scale. And this usually works out when you want to overlay building internals on top of the site plan, because the site plan is usually a completely different scale. And all they usually show is the perimeter of the building. They don't show any of like where the bathrooms are laid out inside the buildings or like any of the other features. So when you do the building overlay, you usually have to shrink that one down and scale it smaller so that it fits properly on the site plan.
Good to know.
And the
All
same
right.
thing goes to when you're doing, same thing when you're doing a Google Earth image and you're trying to overlay a PDF on that. I use the same tricks here, but instead of the architectural drawing, it would be the Google Earth image flattened, and then I would bring in the civil drawing and lay it on top.
Yeah.
And that one you kind of have to use your existing surroundings to scale it properly. So it takes a little bit of like art to it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you get the product.
Okay. Got it. Cool. Thank you. See, I learn things new in here too all the time. So thanks, Mayra.
I'm surprised more professionals don't come, that they're probably so busy right now. That's probably what it is,
All good.
Like I said, one of the images I showed on my PowerPoint, I did 4 drawings. With the civil, the building HVAC, which you can see kind of the ductwork coming in through here. The fire sprinkler plans, which is all this red line, and it shows where the main is coming in. Utilities, and then PG&E, because we wanted to ensure we were avoiding any PG&E gas stuff. More, it's kind of like getting that full picture without having a BIM model, because you usually don't have a BIM model on all projects. Being able to do this in Bluebeam really helps out in the field to see everything happening in one location. Any questions?
I had a question.
Go for it, Ray.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Sorry, I think my audio is cutting off. My bad. When I was with Carrie, Ross had me do some overlays, and he always told me like to change the color on the overlay from like that way you could tell the difference. Is that something you do, or was that just Ross?
It's preference because you can do that as well. What you can do is change colors here, and you can like analyzing, and you can modify different colors. It gets really messy when you do it with multiple drawings. And then another feature that they have here is overlay on here. And I usually don't like that because it doesn't really show you what you want, even though it says it's the overlay blend mode. Not the best tool. So I've noticed that my preference is to the multiply. It kind of shows you both, distinguishes which one's which. If you're doing like, what's the difference between architectural plan 50% versus architectural plan at 100%? One of the quick tools to do is this difference one. Because they're completely different documents. I have HVAC on top of architectural. They're showing you all these like different areas. Yeah, you can change the colors and that usually helps more. You do red and I'll show you the red ones. I will show you where some of the differences are. Like there. And it's showing a lot of differences because like I said, it's completely different drawing sets. But if you do this feature with the exact same sheet number, this one comes in handy. And I usually like to do red and blue because you can, it's like very vivid on the eyes. Like you can see right away the red and the blue. And the bright blue. So this is another feature that works. The different.
Mayra, was it just right clicking and you went to color processing?
So it's right here under snapshot properties.
Uh-huh.
It's in the settings. So you go and you do the change colors, and you modify.
Yeah, I didn't see it because I've got the chat over here covering it up. That's why I missed it. I was like, how did she get that to show the colors?
Yeah, you go into the snapshot properties and you can change the colors. You can go back to grayscale. Various different settings you can play with, and it all comes down to preference on what your eyes like to see best. Like some people on their iPhones like to do the dark mode and everything's like black background. Other people keep their traditional white mode, and it's kind of like one of those scenarios. There's no one way fits all. But like I said, you just have to be curious of Bluebeam's capabilities and kind of just play around with it. Click around and be like, okay, well, what does this do? What does that do? And see how it benefits you in your current situation and how you can.
Yeah, would I be able to ask a quick question? I don't know if you guys can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, okay. So I know how you said that you guys did not have a BIM model for the project. Now I don't know how realistic this might be, but say like in a project like this one where you don't have a BIM model, is it realistic to possibly like develop a generic model using Revit like before construction begins to try to figure out all of this coordination stuff, and obviously not go into super a large amount of detail, but more so like just comparing, you know, like the different sizes and different components of the building and of the different systems. Do you know if that's something that might be you know, of value in a project or not?
Yeah, no, definitely. And it's all a matter of the client and what the client is like. Some clients see the value in BIM and 3D modeling and they can afford that kind of service. Other clients are trying to build to a budget. And for instance, situation, it's a church. So they usually like want to value engineer it and try to get the most bang for the buck. And if they can somewhere, because only limited to the amount of funds that they can raise with their congregation, you usually don't have opportunity to pay for those services like food or like their modeling and Revit.
Right. I suppose my
Who's gonna do it and where that cost is gonna go.
right. I suppose my question is more so of not necessarily another like line item of a service that the contractor is going to provide, but more so quote unquote skill set that the project team has where they just leverage Revit by themselves to, coordinate the different systems, not so much for the client, but for the general contractor itself to build a, kind of how like Bluebeam is used as a skill set or a tool to facilitate coordinating the different drawings. So instead of that, a more, maybe even like virtually building the project, not to the same level of detail that's going to actually get built, but just to understand how the different, components and systems go together before. I don't know if that's something that's like feasible or it would take too long before a project began.
Yeah, I'll jump in on that one. It would definitely be a benefit, but it is kind of a funny thing that it goes back to kind of what Mayra said. So you're talking about probably having to dedicate somebody to that coordination for quite a bit of time on your staff. So now you're talking about adding a staff member to that job, whereas as well as the cost of the programming. So, some contractors like MEPs and stuff, they do offer BIM coordination as part of their package when they do their design, or they'll do it internally to do like clash detection for their own component. But I mean, for us, I've been in a situation when I started out with early on with another contractor where they were starting to try to implement that, trying to get Revit models and everything like that. It takes a lot of time to get that plugged in, especially by an engineer or somebody. So you're thinking about somebody trying to do that as well as on their typical day-to-day duties inside the field. So it's totally doable, but now you're really talking about just adding more staff to another facility. So if you're like on a question like for the church or some of these other ones where it's like, hey, we can't really throw 4 full-time or a project manager, 2 PEs, and a superintendent on a job that's $5 million. It doesn't add up. Our GC level would be too high, and we couldn't be able to make that work. So usually the first thing that gets cut is like extra staff and things like that, all the GC lines. So there definitely is a huge benefit, and it's like what Mayra is going over is doing it in 2D is something that we can do sort of internally and quickly on our end that a lot of other trades can utilize straight from, because they already have this sort of figured out on their side. And when you start developing that 3D modeling, it tends to get a little bit more intuitive, a little more time consuming, unless you have somebody really dedicated to it full time. So this is more of like we can kind of zone it by areas and look at it on each end and kind of go through the job a little bit easier, especially when you're talking to 5 or 6 guys that have never used or seen a BIM model in their life, possibly, during a coordination meeting with some of the superintendents. So, does that answer your question?
Yeah.
I have another question. It's more in relation to the client. And, maybe Mayra, especially in estimating, maybe you have some just feedback on this, but, public work, it's not nearly, as client oriented, but the work that you guys do is you do Valley Children's, you're doing this church, how do you, when you look at a client, is there a process that querying goes through? So like, for example, this church was probably funded by a building campaign, right? At the church. Yeah, so it was funded by the community, likely. And so it's a little bit different I want to say outlook for, you know, when you're taking on a job like this as a general contractor. And so how do you internally at Querying determine like how you're going to approach these jobs with these clients and, you know, gear your job and your construction staff and all that? How does that all affect how you deal with your clients?
She's asking marketing and business development questions here on Mayra.
You're like, oh.
Yes, that's a tough one. Well, like for instance, on this job, we were very mindful during the pre-con stage of their target budget because they were targeting to campaign to a certain dollar amount. That means that the architect, the civil engineer, and the landscape architect all have to try to design to that budget. And as the GC, we were the ones kind of informing the client of where their money was being spent, where they were overspending in certain areas, or we could value engineer certain things out, like switching materials from what the architect originally spec'd out to a different material that one of our subcontractors might have suggested to save cost. That's kind of how I've been involved in dealing with the client, is being very mindful of how their money is being spent out in the field.
And do you think that that's
pre-con stage? Yeah, I was gonna say during both the pre-con stage and out in the field, trying to coordinate ahead of time and minimize any rework that needs to be done because of coordination issues that could have been hashed out ahead of time. So like that mechanical yard, like being able to figure out those issues well before the crew got on site, instead of finding out there is an issue when they're already installing duct going up the wall and the fire sprinkler guy's like, hey, that's where my fire riser is gonna go. And then you're stalling and it affects the schedule, and delayed schedules also equals more time, more cost. All that coordination efforts and mindful of the budget.
so on this job, it sounds like comparing it to Valley Children's budget is a huge deal for this client.
Yes, because they have, like you said, the community funded it. They only have a certain guaranteed maximum price that they can spend on this one.
I see.
There's some contingency. There's some contingency included in there, but budget's a big one.
And was it cheaper going with the pre-engineered building versus building it outright?
One of the cost savings opportunities in pre-con.
I see.
Whether it was going to be traditional structural steel. We did 3 cost analyses. It was whether the building was going to be structural steel, wood framed, or pre-engineered metal buildings. And at that time, when we were starting that cost analysis, that's when lumber skyrocketed. So we threw that one out usually right away. The other one, we did present it to the client though at that stage, but we let him know like, hey, the lumber market is a little all over the place right now. This number is what it is currently. And we presented to him the traditional structural steel building and the pre-engineered metal building.
Hmm.
And I'm just curious, I've actually, one of the reasons I asked this question is I've actually helped some companies build, because I'm Catholic, a number of Catholic churches, and the way that Catholic churches do it sometimes is they have capital campaigns to start the process, but they don't have the full amount to finish it. And so it's like a constant like funding thing with these kinds of clients to try and keep the construction going. And they want to, I don't know if it's the same with this, but they might have all their money, but a lot of times with these private clients, they will their community, they want to show the community that they're starting this building, and so the focus is on getting it going so that people will put more money into the campaign. I don't know if that's the case with this, but it's like, oh, it's a very interesting process from behind the scene, which is very different than, other commercial work or whatever. So I don't know if you guys experience that or not.
I don't know about this one. There's a risk to that methodology too, because, take, a COVID is a great example. Is, we have enough to start. And then if you're not into framing and they say, we need a fundraise for framing, and it's like, and lumber just goes, through the roof, you're now in a position where you're going to pay, 200% more on your lumber than you probably were thinking originally, which means you have to fundraise longer and stuff like that too. So I don't know how, I haven't come across that scenario personally.
Yeah. That's good that they gave you the money right up, or that, they have the money right up front, because I've seen it where it's been this other way and it's like, oh my gosh, how crazy is that?
Yeah. And it could be, they could go in for certain loans, and they have to be able to show that they have a, influx of so much cash coming in from donations and stuff that are guaranteed or something in order to get a loan funded for the balance of it or something up front to pay back, or a market study on the needs and stuff like that. Yeah.
And I asked that question, Carrie and Mayra, because, I know just there's a lot of CM20 students in here that are studying project delivery methods and stuff. And I think it's kind of important to understand that, a Caltrans highway project that's low bid, everything's pretty cookie cutter, but you go into a project like this and, there's the client orientation is so high, there's so much customer service in it, dealing with a client that it's totally different.
Yeah, I think, for those of you, that came to our Fresno State presentation, we have a few like values that we follow at Querying, and client focused is a pretty big one. There's a lot of times where we find ourselves in the situation like, well, what's contract and what's right? So I think, usually I'd say most cases we do what's right, and we were like, most of our bulk of our business comes from repeat business with same clients and referrals from those clients too, so or being, a part of the well. I know a lot of us actually, go to the well church, maybe not Fresno, but other ones, and stuff like that. But, there's a big part where it's, it might be a low bid, but at the same time, you're like, if this is the right thing to do for the client, let's just make it happen, or something like that. I'm not saying that's what always prevails, but, so, we don't do a whole lot of low bid, public works jobs. I think as of right now, I think I'm the one person in the whole company that's probably got the most public works job under their belts. So I'm going into a second, so it's definitely, but I think there is a value that those types of jobs and entities are starting to see now, and I'm only going to use maybe the city of Fresno as an example. They really liked what we did for them out there. And I think, we kind of caught them off guard because we came in on time on our job. And then they've been used to being like, they're asking us like, how do you get your subs to perform? I'm like, we just hassle them. We keep on top of them. We help them with this kind of stuff, and they're like, hey, send us referrals. Like we want to, say some good things about you. And it's like, you have a client that's now asking that you've never worked for in the past, that's used to just like getting up, it's 30 feet and the plan says 29 feet, you owe me for that extra foot. And we're like, no, we're just going to do the extra foot. We're not going to worry about it. So it's, I think there's some of those industries, like you're saying, like Caltrans and stuff. Some of these jobs are starting to change where they are becoming more a design build model. It might cost a little bit more up front and overall, but overall, there's a huge different delivery to that job. You now have a contractor, an architect, and MEPs that are invested into the development of the job with you as a client, that are now like, they're on the hook. They're going to do it. They're not doing it for the lowest price. They're doing it for the best price available after they bid it to you, so it's you're not just picking the lowest one out of the hat, you're picking the best qualified at that point, so I think there's going to be probably a little bit of a shift in the future. We might start seeing more of those kind of work, but yeah, so I mean, we're already being asked to bid more, and we're like, we don't do public jobs. So it's like, hey, well, how do we work with you and partner with you rather than just try and throw our name in a hat with a number, so yeah, it's been working pretty good for us, and we're pretty happy with it.
Well, and what's interesting on that note, Carrie, is that we, in our CM20 class, we talk about these project delivery methods a lot. So I know some of the students that are like Tomas, and I think Tomas is in my CM20 class, but you look at Caltrans jobs and they're low bid, and the way the system works in those jobs a lot of times is those contractors will low bid that job and then change order it to death to make more money on it, or they'll be bad contractors and they'll end up going beyond their liquidated damages and then try and negotiate something down the road. And so these public companies are probably seeing, some good quality contractors like Queering come in, and they're finishing on time, and they're seeing the value in that, because a lot of these low bid jobs, there's a lot of claims on them. Any public job that's a low bid is going to have a lot of claims, where you guys are so client focused. And I think, when you're doing jobs like Valley Children's or like a job like this at the Well Church, you're getting it because of your reputation. That's probably one of the higher qualifications, is the reputation and your customer service to be able to handle that kind of a job. And not every contractor is able to do that.
Yeah, it's been working well for us, but there's only 2 rules to a delivery method you got to remember: on time and under budget. So those are the only things you got to remember for a delivery. So if you can follow those 2, then you're doing just fine.
Do you guys have any questions? I'm going to throw this out there. We have a few minutes here yet. I know Matt, and I think he might have stepped out, but Matt, I don't know, we're working on a mock ABC problem that I've tagged them with to doing a hotel. And so are there any little tips or tricks that you guys are interested in? I think last week we were having troubles with counting for interior finishes that Mayra might be able to help you guys with.
Yeah, I mean, if you could go over the counting, that would be great. I watched some YouTube videos, but show us your tricks. I'm sure you're better than the people on YouTube, so.
Are you talking about doing like takeoffs of like counting the amount of interior doors?
Yeah, something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here, let's do a share screen.
And if I'm not mistaken, Mayra, there was, and I think it was Garrett that showed us years ago, there's like a find function that you can grab, like say a door number, and then search for it, and it'll show all the sheets that it's on.
Yes, there is. Let's see if I can. So here, when you go into search, this little magnifying glass, you can do a visual search. So you can get, like, if I want to come in here, I can do a get rectangle, and I want it to show me where all note 60s are located. And since this is just one sheet, it's probably only going to have like a few of them. And then you hit search. But let's say you have a drawing set and they have, it's like 270 sheets, and you want to go through and see where all this specific one is located at. That's a quick way to do a search. It won't do a count for you, but it will help you find where all the items are at. And that might be the only note 60. Oh no, there's another one over here.
Did you get to the visual search
Let's see
again?
how well. Oh, let me see. I didn't flatten my other overlay. Let me flatten that. There we go. So let's see, on traditional way, I usually have mine all kind of set up. So I have all my tools over here on the left-hand side. But if you don't have it set up, you can either hit Control F and it'll pop up automatically. That's the like keyboard shortcut. Otherwise, you would probably go under, I don't know where it's actually hidden in here. Oh, there it is, help, find tools and commands. Yeah, when in doubt, Control F and it'll pop up. Another thing too is when you go under viewpoint, like view, there is, I'm having trouble finding it right now. So here's the other overlay pages that I was talking about earlier, just quick side notes if you want to do page on top of a page, as opposed to what I showed you guys earlier. There we go.
You know, while she's looking for this, Matt, you know, that snapshot feature that she's got on, that right there, it's easy. It's almost like selecting, you know, so you can select it when she was searching in the search bar and just select the door number and it'll show up on all the sheets.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, but this one, like right here, you can search like text, like your normal, like find like column or frame or something, and you'll search the text. But if you wanted to search something visually, you have to go into this visual option and click the rectangle. But to do a quick door count, what I do is you go over here under tools and you go to measure and you have all these options. You go down here to count. Now, over here on my measurement tab, where I have it on my right-hand side, if you're doing multiple takeoffs, you should set the scale right away, because once you start, it can start getting all messy. And you also have counts in here. So there's multiple ways to get to this count feature. And the standard is this check mark. But what you can do is under settings and properties, you can change it to give you different icons. So you can do a triangle, and then you can change the colors. So I normally like to do this. Let's see if we do a quick one. So like double doors, I'll do like red triangles on all my double doors. And then like if I have the 113As, they're all interior double doors. And if I want to distinguish them, like that's another interior double door. If I want to distinguish them between interior exterior, I'll do the count again. I'll do triangles, and then I'll just change the color to green, and then I'll have 2 here. So one thing that is kind of nifty is down here where the page count is. If you scroll down here, you have this blue highlight section. If you click that, it gives you your markups. So here you can go and you can label stuff. And you can be like, okay, these are interior double doors.
And where did you put the label? Just down in the mark?
So the label is down in the subject area over your markup property. Yeah. So you can do you just highlight everything. And let's say I also want to do the single doors. So I'll do a count, and I want single doors to be squares, and they'll be red because they're interior. They're just a different shape. So I'll just put it there. What you can also do is change the opacity of your marking. So like if we change it to 50, that way it doesn't necessarily block off everything, that like it doesn't hide anything behind it. You can still see the 119B, but it's still counting that square. So you do the same thing. You go and then kind of once you get kind of all of this, all your doors taken off, you go in here at the bottom and you can create a legend, and it'll just summarize. What does it do?
So you just highlight all those and right click on it to get the legend.
Yeah, but essentially is what I did on these guys. And I'll see the legend come up, and it'll do exterior framing, and it'll give you the quantity and the unit count. Same with the fire hydrants. Those are the count features. They'll tell you there's 7 that I kind of plopped in there of fire hydrants. But I think my Bluebeam's kind of acting up right now because of the overlay for some reason. It's not wanting to give me a legend. Oh, sorry.
It's like it's not calculating your markups down there.
Yeah, It's not calculating any of my legends right now. That's not good. So yeah,
I
this
think
is where I would go and type into Bluebeam technical support.
I think you just have to edit the
Go ahead.
columns.
Oh, on my legend?
Yeah, if you create new legend and you go to on the left, scroll up, it should say somewhere like edit columns. Yeah.
Right there, edit columns.
And
I
then you
probably
put-
don't have the count selected. There it is.
Yeah.
See?
Or the measurement. I
But
think
it still didn't calculate it.
it'll probably be the measurement. Yeah. Oh no,
Yeah.
that's weird.
Yeah.
And you don't
weird.
need to just pull it down, Myra. You see where the little dots are?
No,
It's just not showing, huh?
no. It's not showing it right now. Yeah, bummer. Let's see. Let me do something quickly.
So Matt and Kiet, I think that will really help us. We're doing this hotel project, and they've got all these queen size rooms, and they're all the same size, and then they have a few like accessible rooms, but everything is like the same because it's a hotel. And so we just need to go in there, and this will be very helpful being able to count.
Professor Banks.
Yeah.
So like for like doors,
Uh-huh.
the symbol for doors, it changes, right? Like by door type, it's not always the same. Like
On the plans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But for windows, it is, right? By window type, it's usually the same. Like if it's window type G or window type.
I don't know. I think it depends. I mean, maybe Carrie and Myra, what you guys have seen, I think it just depends on the plans, right? You're on mute.
Yeah. I'm trying to think.
I know, I'm just like,
Usually, a lot of times when you have different window types, they'll be designated. Like take like a nail-on flange fiberglass, mill guard
Right.
window versus a storefront window. A lot of times it'll be the same symbol, but inside it might be one might be G, and a store for a regular nail flange or a storefront might be GG. Like it's a different designation of that type. Usually they're the same call out unless it's a specialty item. But again, every architect kind of does things a little bit differently. So they might decide they want to designate between the two differently.
Right, but I guess my question should have been like, if there's multiple windows of the say GG1, if they're the same type of window, they'd all have that designation, right? GG1 or whatever, right?
Yeah, that's how the architect would identify it.
Mostly, yeah. So for like that count measurement, for those guys taking CM20, you can probably do that for the windows with the image, and then after the blue beam shows the images, you just apply a count measurement automatically from that when it pulls it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, that search image feature is helpful when it can actually pick up the image.
Hey, Mayra, I got a question on that for the image. Do you have to go through OCR in order to do that search with the image, or is that just for text?
That's just for text.
Okay. So if you're going to search text, usually you have to run OCR before you can actually search the whole document for text. Just a helpful thing.
that's on any set of plans. You got to run it. Okay. But the image feature is kind of nice. I think that's going to help us a lot on this little mock project that we're doing. I mean, don't you guys think, Matt and Kit?
Yeah, for sure. I'm playing around in Bluebeam right now. So yeah.
You solved our problem that we were trying to figure out last Thursday, so that's going to help us out a lot for sure. Oh, Ninad asked what is OCR. So you can maybe show him, Mayra, but OCR kind of, sometimes you get plans that the lines look kind of like caterpillar-ish. And if you run the OCR, it kind of like makes them more clean,
And it stands for something like optimized content resolution.
I don't know.
It's optical character recognition.
Yeah.
I looked it up. Yeah.
It's something. There you go. You got
it. Optical character recognition, but it also kind of too just cleans up the whole drawing,
If you have a large file size, it can take a bit of time to go through and do.
Yeah, you want to run that when you don't have to you have to do something else right away.
Yeah, one of those you do it at night and then you wake up the next morning and work on it.
Yeah. In Mayra, I don't know if you're in Bluebeam, if you can just show on the tools, and then now just ask where it was. I think it's under tools and then you go to OCR.
It's under document.
Yeah.
Documents.
It's under documents. Let me share my screen.
Yeah, just hit the document tab at the top and it should be like most of the way down. Actually, I think it's in a few.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. At least that's where mine is.
Well, maybe it is under tools, you guys.
Myra's got a different spot. Maybe she's got the better version than I do.
I think it's under
batch.
It's under tools.
Maybe under batch, yeah.
I did just upgrade this morning, so probably not the wisest thing to do before a presentation, because now I'm like, wait, where's all my stuff?
They probably changed it all around too, huh?
They did, yeah. Like I couldn't find a lot of things. I found where my PDF content is, which is really helpful. Like if you want to cut stuff out, or if you want to clean a document for whatever coordination issues, you can also erase stuff. So, and then this is where the snapshot feature is that I use for the overlays. But yeah, they changed where the OCR feature was.
Yeah, I could have sworn.
Another cool feature is if you're trying to send a PDF and for some reason, like all the markups you did made the file size like way too large, Bluebeam has like an internal reduce file size feature. And this is very helpful. Like you can compress it
So
like
that
different
works.
levels, and it will.
Does that work,
That way
Mayra?
you don't have to put it in like a zip file.
I
Yeah.
see. Yeah, so like say you have a
It will
JPEG
just-
file that's really big, you could actually reduce it down like a picture file.
Yeah.
Yes. So, and it'll reduce the existing file, kind of just
It works when you have a
shrink
lot
the
of
size, and then you can send it out
content
the email.
on a set or a drawing or a sheet like that, but it won't always bring it down to say 1,000 kilobytes or something like that. It'll help, but it won't always take it all the way down.
Yeah, and then it tells you,
Yeah,
like
safe.
this one only brought it down because it didn't have a lot, 1.22%. But on, like Carrie said, like some of the ones that have large images, it does significantly bring the file size down.
The shortcut for the OCR is Control-Shift-O. So hold all three of those down. That should take you straight to it. Or at least that's what it is on this end.
Control-Shift-O. Did you try it? Try it, Mayra. See if it works. Control-Shift-O.
I am. That brought up my open feature.
Interesting. What about Control-Shift-0?
Yeah.
Maybe that was it. I think it's O. I really think it is. Huh. Maybe they got rid of it. Maybe it automatically does OCR now.
I doubt that.
I should have not upgraded.
Yeah, for some reason I thought it was in tools, but I could be wrong.
In mine, it's in batch and document. I can find it in two, but it doesn't seem like it's oh yeah, so yeah, Shift-Alt-0. Okay. Well, those of you that can find it, that's what you do.
Yeah, no.
Interesting.
I wonder if that help feature, does it have a search? Find tools.
Maybe they did get rid of it. Yes, because they open up like other.
Yeah, they don't have any more. Interesting. I wonder why.
Yeah, we'll have to maybe Ninad we'll do a little research on that and get back to you on the answer. I know I'm getting this new version too that I've got to upload because I think I get a full license, so it's nice. Okay, you guys, any other questions for Mayra or Carrie?
Yeah, I had.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, so Mayra mentioned something about like loading some pictures into Bluebeam. I don't know how to do that. Maybe you can show me how to do it, Mayra.
Yeah, let's see if I have a good picture to load in there.
Do they still have the picture feature, or did they get rid of that too?
I know.
They're just getting rid of everything.
These companies like to,
So
especially
normally,
big companies like to switch the software around, you know, really mess with your mind.
I don't have many pictures right here. Let me do this real quick. I'll pull up Google Earth and I'll just create a new picture.
Yeah, till then I'll ask my question. So what kind of software do you use to design the whole thing? Like for the structural analysis of the structure, which kind of software do you use? Like back in India, we used a software. Back in India, we used a software called StatPro, which is structural analysis and design. So essentially, for creating a shed, we have to put all the steel data into the software, like model the whole thing and apply the loads wherever necessary, like wind load or seismic load. And it calculates the whole, like the load calculations for the entire project. So it will show the deflection of the structure, like which parts are critical, which parts are not critical, like that. So I'm wondering if you guys use the same thing.
Your consultant
I
probably
haven't
does that,
heard of
Carrie.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's usually on the structural or, engineer. We don't use any programming like that. Yeah, it's not usually in our wheelhouse as a GC. If we had in-house engineers, yeah, we probably have something like that. I would assume that by, now you can probably integrate that programming with like the Revit models and be able to see where those points might be too. But yeah, we don't use anything like that.
Okay, thank you.
Too much math.
Yeah, it is too much math, yes.
Mhm.
But yeah, that's something we would be like, we're not a licensed engineer, so we wouldn't probably take on that risk of trying to. We might, look at something and see it in the field that looks like, you shouldn't be connecting those two. The deflection might be there that maybe the engineer might have missed, and we bring that up, but we wouldn't calculate the load.
Okay, but do you have any idea like what software are used by the structural engineer?
I personally don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
Thank
don't
you.
either.
Yeah. No
Yeah.
problem.
I've seen some of it come on graph paper, so it's all over the place. I didn't even know we could still get graph paper.
We do things.
Yeah.
We do things a little differently here in America.
No, I've never actually asked them what programs they use. They're usually pretty tight to the chest on some of their stuff, but it's never really come up in conversation. But I know some like certain changes or something like that, the structural sometimes calculate out by hand, but yeah, I'm not really sure. That's a great question. Maybe you gotta find a structural engineer to come on here.
Yes.
Fill us all in on that one.
Yeah. I want to just mention that there's just a few more minutes. So I don't know if Mayra was able to find that one picture thing, but we probably should kind of wind this down too.
Yeah, so what I was gonna do is just to kind of walk you guys through how I did the Google Earth overlay with the site plan and how to capture this image and put it into Bluebeam. So right here, I'm just on Google Earth online. This is my site, and you can kind of like move around, but you kind of want to get it as flat and as straight as you can. So like right there. I usually just do the screen capture down here at the bottom. I pin it to my taskbar, but over here you can do the snip and sketch. Grab that guy, new. You kind of just highlight the area you want, and you kind of want to have some reference points like the streets and the intersections. And you just copy this guy. You go into your Bluebeam and you start a blank document and you paste your image on here. And it's going to come out like pretty big, so you just want to get it like sized into that drawing or file. And like I said, the key thing here is to make sure that as you're dropping these in, you flatten as you go, because then stuff will just start moving on you. So you right click the image and then you click this flatten option. That way you can't move it anywhere.
Mm.
So you go over here to your site plan and you do that same snapshot feature here on Bluebeam. And you grab those reference points too, those intersections, the existing buildings, and the streets. And this is where I said, like, when the documents aren't at scale, for instance, this isn't going to line up perfectly when I drop this on here. This is where you play with your scale features. And I'll start bringing all the images down. And the goal, as you can see, I kind of made it to, let me try to do this way. That was way too big. This is where the art comes in. You're kind of playing with your scale a little bit and trying to match up your existing buildings. You kind of get the buildings lined up as close as you can. You can play with it more depending on how precise you want it to get. And you start playing with these different blend modes to see where your image would look the best at. And all of these change, but like I said, normally it's normal or multiply would be the best. This probably wasn't the best sheet plan to get, but you can kind of see once you zoom in where all your utilities will start running, where your proposed building is going to sit on top of the existing road. But more or less, those are the tricks to getting a plan sheet on top of a Google image. If we go back to the sky, this one showed the paving, which is why it was a better plan to use instead of the utilities, because the paving was grayed out like this. So on this one, you can see like right here, it's not perfectly lined up, but it's like this building got lined up pretty well. This intersection right here got lined up pretty well. And you start kind of playing with it. But this helps the owner, especially because when you're in pre-con and you're talking to the owner, they can't see the correlation between what's existing out there in the field, which is just a large peach orchard with the road down the middle, as opposed to what the civil engineer and the architect are drawing. Like they can't see that connection. So these kind of overlays really help bring that visual aspect to the owners, and they could be like, oh, next time they go out to the job site, they could be like, on this corner is where the volleyballs are actually going to sit. The road in correlation to that building is going to be here. And then they'll walk the middle of the existing road, like, oh, we're standing more or less on where the buildings are going to eventually sit during the pre-con and design stage.
Thanks,
Any more
Mayra.
questions? I hope that was helpful on the image.
Yes, it was.
And when in doubt, when you go into Google and you grab any image, or if you have any photo, just right click copy, and then you can drop anything into Bluebeam after you paste it.
So what do you think, Carrie? I think we should have Mayra come back again at some point. You give us lots of tips to help us with our Bluebeam here, Mayra. It was very interesting learning about your project as well. There were a couple questions, just I'm going to read them real quick. Alexander Shelley asked, are you also in charge of building, contracting the internal roads of the property? And Carrie said, yes, we are usually contracted to the entire set of drawings that we receive to bid, unless the owner of the project has only desired us to bid a certain portion of the project. And then he asked, does this project also include widening knees to 2 lanes from Clovis to Minnewawa?
No. So we have everything from our property line into the property. Everything outside of the property line is the City of Clovis project, and they are actually going to widen Lee's Avenue. It's part of their Measure C funding for like improvements. But that one, since it's public works and it's Measure C money, it has to go out to public bid. So it's not part of our contract, and it's not the owner's responsibility to widen Mini Wawa. It was part of the conditions of approval. I'm going to share my screen real quick.
I think a
To
part of that,
widen
yeah, sorry.
Clovis Avenue.
Yeah.
So like we do have some street work, but not necessarily tied to large infrastructure for city improvements. But in order for us to be granted the permission to build this project on the site, the city has conditions of approval, is what they call them. And one of them was to widen Clovis Avenue in order to allow us to have an entrance coming in this way. So that's part of our work, is that small amount of street work, creating 2 lanes here. Or an additional lane, because one already exists.
Yeah, so you're probably putting in the turn lane in, huh? To your site, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mayra, when are you supposed to finish this job?
It's supposed to be finished in mid-February with the goal to get the client into the sanctuary for Easter service.
Next year.
Mhm.
Yes.
So this may be bug leaders, maybe we can get her to come back when she's done more of the construction of it. We can see the part 2.
Yeah, more progress photos.
I know, more progress photos, yeah.
Right.
Well, we probably should wrap this up. We're a little over here and I try to stay to the time. So I think we're gonna kind of wind it down here. So Mayra, it was very helpful to see some of these new tips and tricks with Bluebeam and to hear about your project and to have you tonight. So hopefully you can talk to Carrie too, but hopefully we can get you back at some point and see the progress on this. That would be really nice.
It's up to her. I mean, I can't make her.
I know, you can't make it.
Just remind me not to update it before.
Yeah, don't update, yeah.
Don't update the software.
Yeah. But yeah, we're always looking for speakers. So think about it. And you can always tell Carrie, because we're always looking for folks. And he seems to have a wealth of projects over there that we've had come and speak at various different semesters. So I think it'd be a great one to see the progress with. So, okay. Any other comments or anything, you guys? I appreciate you guys sticking around this late. I know there was a lot of good information. And so I'm sure those of you that were master students probably got an earful here when you came in. So I'm glad you were able to make it. Okay.
All right.
Okay. Well, you guys have a good rest of the week and spring break. And then we're going to have another speaker here on the 26th, keeping our fingers crossed. So hopefully we'll see you guys back after the spring break. Okay.
Awesome.
And thank you
Thanks,
so
guys.
much, Mayra and Carrie. We really appreciate you.
Anytime. Thank you, Mayra. I guess I owe you lunch now.
I know.
Or Jeremy does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, you
I'll
guys.
call him. I can tell him what to do.
Yeah.
I'm teasing. All right. Yeah, thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Okay,
See
bye.
you later.
We'll
Bye.
see you
Good night.
guys.